Hey guys, I may be slightly addicted to Atziri's Disfavour. This is like the third build that I'm doing with Atziri's Disfavour in a row. The first was just a quick test with the Spectral Throw, no special thing. Then the last video that I did was with the Stun Flicker Strike. And after that, I started planning another build on the same character. So I refunded that build and made into Vengeance. And this is, I would say, pretty cool mechanics. It became more like a walking simulator build. You're essentially just running, just like with Herald of Thunder build, and then stuff dies. By the way, this is 90% of the damage is lighting. This is still Slayer. So normally Vengeance can hit really hard. This is currently hitting for over 4 million average damage, and I feel like it has even more potential, but it doesn't feel like that most of the time against bosses. For mapping, it feels pretty great. You just boom, big AoE. And because of Atziri's Disfavour, I'm getting massive Vengeance AoE. It's pretty much full screen and I'm playing on ultra wide monitor. Now the main mechanic how I'm doing this is I had this idea long time ago, but it never really looked good on paper until now, when Atziri's Disfavour allows you to get more AoE, because Vengeance does scale with the weapon range. I'm not entirely sure how exactly it scales. Does it just get plus radius per one weapon range and melee strike range, or does it get like increased AoE in some way? But it is scaling like really well. It has a lot of conditional things, and that's why I think the damage isn't always consistent and sometimes just feels bad. But I tried running Sanctum, and actually surprisingly Sanctum went pretty well, although I cannot still defeat the last boss. Everything is pretty much the same color to me, red on red, and then the boss shoots red projectiles, stuff things, and then the red ground, and then you run away. Just everything red. I can't tell where it begins, so I'm still failing the last fourth boss. But it's pretty cool running around seeing all the guards, sometimes getting one-shotted, sometimes not, because the second hit will be stronger because you will apply a strong shock. So the main mechanic how this works, it has a chance to be triggered when you get hit. There are many ways to kind of proc Vengeance, like with the Eye of Innocence, the helmet that does damage based on your mana cost, Bone Shatter, each time you hit enemy, a trauma stack does damage to you, and that can proc. But all of those requires you to click stuff. With this idea, you don't need to click stuff. You just run around casting debuffs sometimes from time to time and just dodging stuff. And this is using Herald of Thunder. You know I like Herald of Thunder builds, and Storm Secret Ring does damage to you each time Herald of Thunder hits an enemy. And also Storm Secret Ring allows Herald of Thunder to be procced when you shock an enemy, rather when you kill a shocked enemy. So Vengeance hits enemy, guarantees shock, because I'm using this amulet, Rashkaldor's Patience. It says always freeze, shock and ignite. You still need to do those elemental damage to be able to apply those ailments. That's why I'm converting into lighting. And essentially Vengeance hits an enemy, shocks, guarantees a shock, and then that procs Herald of Thunder. And Herald of Thunder then procs Storm Secret Ring to do damage to you, which then procs Vengeance again. Remember, Vengeance has a chance to be procced. Yeah, by default it has 30% chance to trigger this skill when hit. It's not always proccing as soon as it can proc, as soon as it goes off cooldown. The base cooldown is 1.2 seconds on Vengeance. So as soon as it goes off cooldown, the Storm Secret Ring hits you, does damage to you, and that has a chance to proc Vengeance. And then the Vengeance procs Herald of the Thunder again, and then the Herald of Thunder procs does damage to you because of Storm Secret, and it's just perpetual motion. And because of Atziri's Disfavour, I have some alt quality inside it. Cast on critical strike, Anomalous gives 50% more attack damage when you put it inside Atziri's Disfavour. Vengeance I also chose to go with Anomalous. You do want to lower cooldown as much as possible, because with the long cooldown it feels bad when you run between enemy packs and you still have to wait a long time before it can proc. So you want to lower the cooldown. Unfortunately, Helmet Enchantment on Abyssus aren't very common. I only found one on the market. It doesn't have to be Abyssus, but of course you're gonna lose a lot of damage. You don't necessarily need the Helmet Enchantment, you can do it without it. The damage is gonna be the same, the DPS may be lower, but the average damage is gonna be the same. So I'm also using Anomalous melee physical damage, which gives +5 to melee weapon range, which also contributes to, I believe I'm not entirely sure, I got so confused. Is weapon range the same as melee weapon strike range? Maybe, I don't know, but I assume that it is. Either way, it does give good damage. Then I am using Anomalous Physical to lighting support, and inside Atziri Disfavour is getting 75% of physical damage converted to lighting. Unfortunately, I don't have an easy way to get full conversion, so it's only 75% conversion, but I'm also getting physical as extra lighting on the tree a bit, so 90% of my damage is still lighting. Then Divergent Pulverize. Unfortunately, I believe I paid almost 4 divines for it, so that's one of the more expensive gems. Divergent gives 20% more melee area damage at 20 quality, and inside Atziri's Disfavour, this gives overall 98% more melee area damage. Nothing can beat that, and you don't care about the attack speed because the Vengeance just procs it based on cooldown, not based on attack speed. Then initially I was using something else, but I had to switch Lighting Penetration because I couldn't figure out why my damage sometimes felt so bad. I'm hitting for over 4 million damage, and I can guarantee big shocks, pretty much maximum shocks. That is with 50% shock. Without 50% shock, it's 3 million average hit damage. And in PUB, you're gonna see in the notes, I wrote down the conditional things and kind of cons and pros. You have many conditional things, and I think that's why the damage does not feel great. Like, first of all, you only have 15% chance on attack to proc Intimidate, which is coming from the Axe node. And Vengeance doesn't hit that often, so you may lose Intimidate. That's it's not a big damage loss. You have cast when damage taken with procs because of the ring. As soon as you take enough damage, it procs the cast when damage taken, which procs exposure, wave of conviction. Then you also need to create chilling areas for more damage because I'm using Algor Mortis. Enemies in your chilling areas take, in this case, 32% increased lightning damage. That's a massive multiplier. No other gloves would beat that. And they are pretty cheap to get with the corrupted implicit for attack critical strike chance. Then you also need to create brittle ground under enemy feet. So you create brittle ground, which just makes it more consistent. It doesn't actually give you more average damage. It just allows you to crit more often. And this is not a 100% crit chance, which is another bad thing, bad inconsistency with a slow hitting skill. You also need to cast Temporal Chain manually, but that's not a big deal. You just need to cast it anywhere because I'm using Balance of Terror, and Balance of Terror in my case gives 22% increased cooldown and recovery rate. But you have to recast it like every 10 seconds or so. Well, don't have to. It just increases it makes the mapping smoother. I did craft a physical version, and maybe some enemies just have more resistances, like with the rare modifiers or just map modifiers, or something else. That's why I chose to use Lighting Penetration, and without Lighting Pen and a small conductivity, I do have cast and damage taken, wave of conviction, and only level 7 conductivity, which still lowers enemy resistance by quite a lot, plus penetration, so I thought maybe it should be enough, but I don't know, maybe it's not enough. So I do have a physical version crafted as well. You would have to basically switch the passive tree to physical crit, skills, crit physical, and item sets also crit physical. This is with crit physical impale. The issue with that is pure physical, and it does not automatically shock unless you would add something to cast when damage taken, but then you wouldn't do enough damage to apply longer shocks, although you just need to proc the shock, even a smaller shock, but you may still not be able to do that. So you would have to manually use Smite, for example. Smite, Overcharge, and Feast to Lighting support. I don't have enough sockets. You would also want, I guess, Unbound Ailments or something else. I think I don't have enough sockets. But manually proccing shock feels like something that I would not enjoy, so I didn't try this, although I am tempted to see maybe this would feel smoother because this would also have 100% hit chance, critical strike chance, so it would be more consistent. However, the damage would only be better on second hit because the first hit would only apply Impale and not proc the Impale, and this is with the Impaler, so essentially apply 5 Impales with a single hit, but then you cannot apply a new Impale for 4 seconds. I'm not sure how would that feel while mapping, and for bossing it should be better, I think. And my theory is that bosses would not have as much armor as we can get resistances, and for armor, because you are hitting so hard, you don't even need Overwhelm. I am getting a bit of Overwhelm somewhere. You don't even need Overwhelm to hit for maximum damage, because you are hitting for so much. So my theory is that physical may actually feel more consistent and feel better because it has fewer conditional things. I still need to proc Intimidate on a hit, 15% chance. I still need to create Battleground, but I don't need to worry about the chilling areas. And I don't need to worry about actually rolling a critical strike, because it should always be critical as long as it's on the Battleground. So it may feel better as a pure physical if you don't mind manually proccing shock. It may also be a bit tankier. It's still gonna be a glass cannon, because you would be able to use different gloves, so you could even slowly generate rage. It wouldn't be very fast, but the gloves could be much better. You could also choose a different amulet. Flat physical damage does not add as much damage as you may think, because it already has a lot of flat physical damage from Abyssus, from the weapon itself. Oh, and both versions use 2 forbidden jewels, but don't worry, they are very cheap. I think I paid overall like 40 keys for both of them. And this is just to get Painforged, which is a duelist node. For your counter attacks deal double damage. And this is still Slayer, using Overwhelm to increase the base crit, getting damage from here, getting EOV, and a lot of EOV from this one, and also damage, and then getting Leech. If you're lacking attributes, a good place to use Transformation Jewel from Strength into Dex. Probably gonna need more Dex than Intelligence, but Intelligence also was needed, especially if you're playing Lighting version, because Lighting version also uses this amulet, which increases the attribute requirements by 10%. And it's also very easy to get this amulet with the additional curse effect Corruption, and then you can still anoint something else. So I'm gonna set this to base critical, because that's what I was playing. Also with Lighting crit, you can shock for 50% like very easily. If you look at the shock effect stuff, I still haven't learned how exactly to read these numbers, but this is element threshold for bosses. For pinnacle bosses, it's 6.3 million element threshold. From what I understand, you should be able to apply even 65% shock on pinnacle bosses, but this is not against Ubers. So 50 is the limit for this build. So it should be able to apply 50% shock quite reliably. But for pure physical, you're not going to be applying 50% shock, so you may only get like even 10%, maybe 20 at most. But like I said, you would have to manually reproc it, so it may be annoying. But for Lighting shock, you can just enter 50% shock. Now it has even more conditional things or checkboxes to select if you want to like purely maximize the damage, but like you're never gonna be surrounded by 10 big bosses, and in fact you are dealing way more damage while mapping, while you are surrounded by many enemies. Like if I enter 10 enemies here, it goes to 5.1 average hit damage rather than 4.2. So I did not click all the checkboxes that I could have, but I just selected the most basics that you would want to meet. I'm also using Lionized Roar, which doesn't give that much damage, to be honest. So you could use something else instead. Now also, like, super important thing is, as soon as you start mapping Axe Mastery, enemies killed by your hits are destroyed. All the enemies destroyed also remove their flying projectiles, their active projectiles like porcupines, some other influence monsters also. So you just leave slam into projectiles, enemies die, and those projectiles also disappear and don't kill you. You're mostly sustaining with Leash, but you are not supposed to get hit. So this is like a glass cannon, like I said, and I may still return and try the physical version. But what do you think is the problem? Why is the Lighting version sometimes it says big damage, like 3 million damage without even shocking, but sometimes it feels like maybe it hits for less than 1 million damage against some bosses? What is happening? And those bosses don't even have like any like Lighting resistance modifiers or shock resistant or anything like that. Surely there are many conditional things, but is it really just all the conditional things? What do you think? Do you think physical version would perform better because it has fewer conditional things and it does not need to care about resistances? Let me know in the comments below. I may still retry this or redo this, but I already am doing another build with the Atziri Disfavour, so the next build will be Ancestral Protector Chieftain with Atziri Disfavour. Very fast attack speed and very massive reach. But it may not have like crazy damage or anything, but it should perform better in Sanctum, I believe. So make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.